Hey, I want to thank you for asking this question, because now it's giving an opportunity to raise awareness to this. Because a lot of people simply don't know, and it ain't nothing wrong with that, but here we go. But everybody got the chance to know now, so all the things to the Most High. And if you deal with any Christian pastors or camp Israelites that misuse this scripture, this is how the card will be pulled after I show this information. So the comments say, so then what does he mean with 1 Timothy 4 verse 1 till 6? And this was in response to when I said that the Creator prescribed a diet in Genesis 1:29 of seeded fruit and herbs only. Most Israelites say, well, what about Leviticus 11? Most Christians say, well, what about 1 Timothy 4? So let's go there. Now I'm finna show you why it's important to understand context. You need to know who is speaking, who they speaking to, why are they saying what they saying. First of all, Paul, aka Saul of Tarsus, wrote this epistle/letter to Timothy. And when you understand the historical context of why he is writing letters, it's going to all make sense. Now watch this. Take your notepads out, because we see Paul is referring to some group of people who is pushing the doctrine of the devil according to him. And within this doctrine of devils, he said that they were commanded to abstain from meats. And then he turned around and said, you can basically eat whatever you want, just pray over it. So basically, according to Paul, if you choose to drink cyanide, it will not be poison to you if you just pray over it. Now, let's see how that hold up. Let's get into the historical context. During the first century, it was a lot of debates going on about whether people should eat the meats that was sold in the markets because it was sacrificed to idols, or to not eat it at all. Because this group of people with the doctrine of devil that Paul said, they was promoting and saying that people should not be eating meats, or the Jews should not be eating meats at all, because they don't know the origin of where it's from, and if they didn't sacrifice it themselves, that is considered offered to devils. Now let me get the context on that. Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 25, and we're gonna read. Paul say in 1 Corinthians 10, he say, whatsoever is sold in the shambles or the markets, he say, that eat, asking no question for conscience sake. Basically, Paul saying, go ahead and eat it, but just don't ask no questions so it don't be on your mind. Let me tell you, in the streets, this is how a lot of people get laced. All right? He say, if any of them that believe not bid you to a feast, and you be disposed to go, whatsoever is set before you, eat, asking no question for conscience sake. He repeated it again. Go ahead and eat it. Just don't ask a question whether it was sacrificed or not, so it don't be on your conscience. But then he turned around later on and said, if you do happen to find out, don't eat it. So let's see if what he said in verse 25, 26, and 27 is righteous. A little bit before he wrote that letter to the Corinthians, he had a whole meeting with the head apostles in Jerusalem. Now let's see what that meeting talked about. In Acts chapter 15, you can see they had a deliberation about whether or not they're going to have the Gentiles to circumcise themselves or not. But then the head apostle James, who has authority in the room at this time, steps up and said, no, we're not going to make them circumcised right now, but we are going to make them do this. Pay attention. This is the decree that he made in verse 28. He said, for it seemed good to the Ruach HaKodesh and to us to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary things. And this is what he listed. He say that you abstain from meats offered to idols. So as you do your historical research, you're going to see that James, Peter, and John has apostolic authority. And at that time, they was promoting that people abstain from meats offered to idols. This is that group that Paul was referring to when he say doctrines of devils. Now pay attention. He say, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, from which if you keep yourself, ye shall do well, fare ye well. This is what he told Paul and Barnabas to go teach when they go to the European nations. But as you can see, Paul wanted to do his own thing in 1 Corinthians 10. And he fell out with James, Peter, and John, who had the apostolic authority in Jerusalem, aka the party of circumcision. Now check this out. Not only did he fall out with James, Peter, and John, but he fell out with his partner Barnabas as well because of disagreement. So what Paul ended up doing? Paul went to go do his own thing to create his own churches. And he was writing letters to these churches because these churches was hearing through the wind that he had no actual authority, because he had no actual letters of recommendation. But then Paul turned around and get in his philosophical stuff and was saying he don't need letters because the letter killed. Long story short, Paul demonized James, Peter, and John, as you can read in Galatians as well. In 1 Timothy 4, this is an example of what he did. He called what they were doing doctrines of devils because he didn't want his followers following James, Peter, and John. They had smoke at that time. If you want to get into any history or scholarship, man, y'all tap in with me. If anybody want to do a scholarly comparison or deliberation / debate without strife, Tap in with me because we can deal with this. But I'ma just let you know, I ain't step out overnight with this information. This came from a long time of studying and scholarly comparison with other people. So just make sure you bring your A game if you want to come have a deliberation with me in regards to this topic. And if I had to stand with anybody, I would stand with James, Peter, and John. At the end of the day, get that meat out your mouth. Big old peace and big old shalom. The Instagram link in my bio.